Welcome to the Rust Belt Rundown, brought to you by Rust Belt Recruiting. This podcast is designed to shine a light on the meaningful work being done in Northeast Ohio and the surrounding region. We will convene manufacturing executives and Northeast Ohio business leaders for candid discussions about their business, regional happenings, industry trends, entrepreneurship, and more. Now, let's get running on the rundown.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 25 of the Rust Belt Rundown, a Rust Belt recruiting production. I am your host, Paul O'Connor, and on this episode, we are joined by Todd Leebow, President and CEO of Majestic Steel. Todd, happy Friday. Good morning. Thanks for coming on the pod.
Good morning, Paul. Thanks for having me.
So let's jump in, man. Founder is a title that you really seem to gravitate to. Tell us about the four companies that you have founded: Sozo, Workwear, Felux, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, the Bond Street Group, and Kind of One Concepts to date. Tell us about those four, and then how did, growing up in an entrepreneurial home influence your desire to follow a similar path?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I mean, it really happened organically. I went to school for business management and entrepreneurism. And so I had always had entrepreneurial thoughts in terms of what I wanted to do. And then growing up in a family business, always been around business. And so really, when you think about those four, Felix was the first one. And so being in the steel industry, realizing that there wasn't a significant investment in technology in the space compared to other spaces, saw an opportunity to launch a platform that was incubated actually at Majestic Steel, but spun off, and now it operates completely independent of Majestic as its own platform business. So in that situation, Felix is really focusing, how do you solve for the steel and industrial supply chain through a tech platform? And then going on with the other businesses, Kind of One Concepts, always had a passion for hospitality, restaurants, food and beverage. When I came back to Cleveland, always thought there was an opportunity to do things here in the city where there's gaps. There's a lot of great restaurants in Cleveland, but felt like there's an opportunity to, do some things in Cleveland that maybe hadn't been done before. So really just started to bring talent around me. It's really about the people that you put around you to execute. And so working with some, great chefs and operators in that space really then resulted in opening our first restaurant here just in February of 2021. And then Bond Street was really about, another opportunity to really do something unique in Cleveland in terms of real estate development and really have an impact on the city in terms of, when you think about real estate development, that's really what brings opportunity and energy to a city. And so, that's really where that stemmed from, a passion for really kind of helping to rebuild and modernize Cleveland. And then lastly, Sozo really came to be during the pandemic. So during the pandemic, no one kind of knew what was going to happen. There was a need for masks. And so at Majestic, we had the ability to manufacture them. So we brought in some talent and made our own masks, and then said, why not? The work environment's evolving. Things are changing, and what people are wearing on a daily basis changing. It's becoming much more kind of casual in the workspace, but then also just generally speaking. And so the team really then just started to say, okay, well, let's start to make, hoodies and other fashion items that fit within this kind of modern way that we live and work and play today.
Man, I got to assume being a founder of four companies and that's not even your full-time day job, that you are a guy that lives by his calendar. Do you have time during the day to grab lunch? How many coffees are you drinking a day?
Yeah, still only drinking one coffee a day, sometimes two. I try not to overconsume, at least in coffee, and try to use it as my starter log, not necessarily my fire that blazes all day. But the schedule is definitely, I'm definitely adhering to my calendar on a regular basis, which is always a moving target. I try to, plan ahead, but not too far ahead. So typically, looking 2 weeks out. And I think just like in business, you have to be nimble and agile, but at the same time, to keep myself hands-on and involved in all those things. You have to be able to, navigate and juggle it all. The biggest thing though is putting the right people in place. If you put the right people in place and you provide them direction and autonomy, but give them the tools to be successful, that's what's most important.
Yeah, 100%. Right feet in the right seats is a quote that I always loved, and it's huge. Okay, so you joined Majestic Steel almost 14 years ago. Did you always know you wanted to be a leader in your family's business legacy? So that's question one. And then two, what has it been like overseeing a second generation family business?
Yeah, actually, it was quite the opposite growing up. I always appreciated the family business, appreciated the steel industry and what my dad had built, and I grew up, in it and around it. But when I left Cleveland, I really wanted to go do my own thing. I actually didn't think I was going to come back to Cleveland, and didn't think I was going to come back to the steel industry. But I'm a firm believer that you got to play the hand you're dealt. And I had an opportunity where we had a business and I could come into something where most don't. And so I changed my mindset towards our family business in the steel industry in Cleveland, and saw it all as opportunity and a challenge that I wanted to embrace. And so, the steel industry obviously has a lot of history and is an old industry and been around for a while. So I saw it as an opportunity to really take a unique approach towards the industry, and also how, businesses were evolving. I mean, you look at the world today and the multi-generational workforce and the way that people do things today versus 20 years ago. It's so different, but there's still a lot of traditional aspects to the steel industry. So I saw it as an opportunity to come into a family business and innovate and not look at it as it wasn't something that I had started, but it was something that I can transform and build off of the foundation and core that was already intact. So that's really how I approached the opportunity.
Love it. Good transition. For our listeners, give us a rundown on the current state of manufacturing and more specifically the steel industry.
Yeah, it's been an interesting last 18 months, obviously, since the pandemic. I think that a lot of things have been turned upside down. I mean, when have we ever had to shift as quickly as we had to shift? But ironically, I mean, demand for manufacturing has been very strong. There's a resurgence of manufacturing that's going on today. And so from the demand perspective, it's very strong. From the steel industry side of it, the industry has changed rapidly. There's been a ton of consolidation in the space, especially with the mill producers, as well as just the way that steel is transacted today, because supply chains have changed and there's been a ton of disruption in the market. And so how you navigate that and manage that is very different today than it was just 18 months ago. But our outlook is that there needs to be a strong manufacturing base here in America, and that the steel industry is critical to that. I mean, a lot of people don't think about the influence of steel to manufacturing and everything, but I mean, it's everything, right? It's your car, your washer, your dryer, it's all the parts of your house, it's the bridge, it's the road, it's all the buildings that surround us. I mean, even energy, whether it's the oil and gas space or it's the solar and wind space. So it just is a huge part of our overall economy.
Like you said, obviously, steel is an essential American industry. Tell us how Majestic is leading the way in innovation and then reinvestment.
Yeah, the way that I think about innovation and reinvestment is really talent and technology. At the end of the day, people do business with people, and technology plays such a critical role in everything that we do today. I mean, look, we're able to do this podcast because of technology. And just think a few years ago how content was distributed. And so you have to think that way in all industry and all businesses. So at Majestic, we've put a major focus on talent and technology. The people that we attract, we're not necessarily just attracting people that come from a manufacturing or steel background. We're attracting people from all industries and all geographies, because we want that diverse perspective, while still, having a strong foundation of steel and manufacturing, which is critical to our business. And so I think from a talent perspective, we're all fighting this talent war across different industries. And so you have to be, the employer of choice. You have to create an opportunity for your people to be creative and really develop within their career, especially the next generation. And on the technology side, we talk about tech companies, and I've always said that every company has to be a tech company. Tech is not necessarily an industry. So at Majestic, we need to be a tech company. We need to use data and technology as a differentiation, as a currency today, being able to manage your business real time. I mean, we're affected by everything in our business. So we need to make sure that we can adjust quickly and be able to, forecast where we see things going real time. So that's really, how I see innovation is really, how do you utilize talent and technology to foster a culture of innovation.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. I think the companies that are going to win in 2030 and beyond, just like you said, are investing in diversity and diversity of thought, right? I think it's super smart to bring people in that maybe don't have that traditional steel background. And then I agree. Every company does need to be at some aspect, right? A technology company. Good transition into what I feel like I read about every morning, the supply chain. So obviously the supply chain issues are top of mind for everyone. I wanted to ask you about one of your in-house innovations, MICS, M-I-C-S, which is an inventory management system, which allows customers to scan all the inventory coming into their warehouse and then link it to their manufacturing line, which allows for depleted inventory to be restocked. So tell us about how this came about. Go for there. How did this happen?
Yeah, when I started at Majestic, I actually started in inventory management and supply chain. I thought that was the most critical part of the business. Where we sit in the industry, we sit right in the center. I mean, we have that 50-yard line seat, being in distribution and processing. We're right in the middle of the mills and the manufacturers. So inventory management is so critical to the business and supply chain management. And if you think about what happened over the last year and a half, we've had so much disruption to the supply chain that you can't necessarily plan for or predict. And a lot of the manufacturing sector went more towards, how do I cut costs? How do I lean out just-in-time environment? And really, just-in-time is only as good as having material to be able to manufacture your products. And we see that in terms of, look at the auto sector and the disruption with the chip shortage, and how that part can have such a drastic impact. And the cost of that is so much greater than any price you pay for anything. I mean, because it impacts your overall revenue and impacts your ability to produce. And so at Majestic, we see ourselves as a supply chain solutions business. And so when it comes to the technology side, we've focused on how do we provide our customers transparency and visibility into the supply chain. And Mike's is an example of that. And we're, always continuing to build on that. And so the idea of Mike's is to be able to help our customers better manage their inventory by giving them a digital solution and be able to do that easily within their own locations, so that they have better visibility of the steel that they have on hand and where that steel is in the process. And so Majestic, we carry significant inventory to provide our customers the assurance that they will have product and that they'll have that product timely. And so, Mike's is really about that. And so we're just, starting to get some more traction on that. And I think that generally speaking, the industry is going to be more open towards these type of solutions, given what every company's gone through the last 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, for sure. Switching gears a little bit, in recent years, Majestic Steel has turned to strategic acquisitions for growth. Talk to us about the companies that you acquired and then why they made a good fit to join the Majestic Steel Corporation.
Yeah, Majestic's niche has always been a leader in flat rolled, primarily coated steel products. And so those products go into diverse end markets and geography across the map. And so we've always said, cover the markets, cover the map, but stay great at what we're great at. And so when we look at acquisitions, we look at acquisitions that we think fit into our business, whether they fit into our core or they're an extension of our core. And so the acquisitions that we've done to date really are extensions of our core that have expanded our footprint. Majestic was able to service outside of a typical geographic reach because of our inventory availability and because of our ability to service customers. And now we're really growing into that footprint. So we did an acquisition at the end of 2020 in Vegas with a company that had a niche in terms of that geography, and then another acquisition with locations in California and Washington State, which then expands our business out to the West. And so now we have a pretty good geographic reach, and we're going to continue to look at footprint expansion as we look to grow and cover the map and cover the markets.
Yeah, I mean, this goes across all industries and teams, but I think even in sports, there's parallels, right? Like if you're a coach and you're building your staff, your strengths, right? And the best coaches try to double down on their own strengths and then hire assistants that, basically fulfill their weaknesses. So I think that strategy can be taken across sports, business, industries, and all that, and super, super smart. Okay, so to our discussion earlier, you're obviously very entrepreneurial. One of your projects includes a major redevelopment project in the Gordon Square neighborhood. Taylor of Rust Belt is actually friends with Taylor Hawkins. And so we wanted to talk to us about your vision for that project and the impact you see it having on an already great near West Side neighborhood.
Yeah, Justin Strizzi and Taylor Hawkins and I came together, and they have experience in the real estate side of the business, and we said, how can we as Clevelanders identify a location to really kind of make our mark in terms of the development business here in Cleveland. And so we were able to identify this location. I mean, that location, that neighborhood already has great identity and character, and what we want to do is we want to fit into that identity and neighborhood, but also elevate it. And so we saw the Gordon Square, Detroit Shoreway District as an opportunity to be able to do that and kind of fill in where we're really located in between Gordon Square. And then, you go down Detroit towards Ohio City, and Ohio City obviously has had a resurgence here in Cleveland. And we think there's an opportunity to truly kind of connect these neighborhoods while making sure that there's a clear identity in terms of what each neighborhood stands for. And so this project is really about elevating this neighborhood, creating a lifestyle, multifamily development with some mixed use elements to it. But really about, those that want to kind of live an urban life, but be able to have the convenience and lifestyle that our project is going to provide for that neighborhood. The design details of it and the way that we went and approached the project and how we were able to get this across the goal line and now breaking ground is really about just kind of how we can be a part of a neighborhood and how we can elevate this neighborhood and any future neighborhood that we look to develop within Cleveland or any area.
It's awesome, man. That's great. Okay, last question. We'll get you out of here, but we always like to highlight local area Cleveland restaurants. We know your restaurant, The Last Page, just opened in Pinecrest. So why don't you tell us about that business and then plug, one of your favorite spots prior to it opening?
Yeah, The Last Page is a unique concept. Really, what we're doing is we're taking classics and influencing them with global flavors. It's really intended to be a place to get great food, great drinks, eat, meet, hang, and it's really versatile in terms of the way that we approach the concept. I think that you'll see that in the menu is there's a lot of different flavor profiles that influence the dishes and the cocktails, while still staying nostalgic. I think that, that's kind of what modern American cuisine and dining experiences need. And so that's the direction that we went with the last page, and feel like there's a ton of opportunity in Cleveland to also enhance neighborhoods. I mean, just like real estate development, hospitality, food and beverage does the same thing to a neighborhood. So that's really what kind of one is focused on. How do we do that from a hospitality, food and beverage side of things? I mean, Cleveland's got a lot of great restaurants. Cleveland's a neighborhood city. There's a lot of great neighborhoods in Cleveland. And so we wanted to just bring something that was unique and differentiated in terms of what's here today. I grew up in Cleveland, came back to Cleveland. And so as far as favorites in Cleveland, I mean, it kind of depends. I'm more of a, what am I in the mood for type of guy. But, I love sushi. So I'll, go down to Ginkgo in Tremont, or I think Albatross does a great job in terms of the experience that they've created and the character of that restaurant. But then, Cleveland's got actually a lot of ethnic influence. And so there's a lot of just kind of go get great, Chinese food, Thai food, pizza. So there's a lot of great options here in Cleveland. But what we're really focused on is how do we kind of bring some unique dining experiences to Cleveland to elevate the hospitality, food and beverage experience that you can have here.
That's awesome, man. That's great. Well, Todd, listen, we really appreciate you coming on and taking the time this morning. Before we get out of here, if any of our listeners are looking to get in touch with you or follow your story, where can they do that? Website or email, social, all that stuff?
Yeah, Majestic website, my email, tleebow@majesticsteel.com. Although, emails definitely get backed up these days. LinkedIn, I'm not as active on social platforms, but, reach out to me and love to, collaborate or talk about what we're doing. And so I appreciate it, Paul. And it's been great chatting with you this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again, Todd. Best of luck with everything the remainder of the year and then into 2022. And we hope to have you on again soon, man. Enjoy the weekend.
Yeah, thanks. You too.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Rust Belt Rundown. Make sure you check us out at rustbeltrecruiting.com. The Rust Belt Rundown is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and click on 5 stars if you enjoyed this episode. See you next time.